All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Made in NYC's COVID-19 Town Hall for Sole Proprietors. We really appreciate you all being here today. Our goal today is to answer the questions of manufacturers and makers who are sole proprietors, have little to one employee, owner, co-owners. We really want to support and specifically answer questions for our micro manufacturers and sole proprietors. My name is Joanna Reynolds. I'm the Programs and Partnerships Manager for Made in NYC. Want to thank you all for joining in this very abnormal time that we're living in right now, and hopefully we can be of support. Made in NYC is an initiative of the Pratt Center for Community Development, a nonprofit organization dedicated to a more sustainable and equitable New York City. And Made in NYC's work is generously supported by the New York City Council. We are also incredibly thankful to have Con Ed on as our sponsor for their town halls and ongoing meetings related to COVID-19. So just wanted to give a shout out and thank you to Con Ed. Many of you who are on the call right now are already Made in NYC members, but for those who aren't, Made in NYC has a free membership program that supports New York City manufacturers and makers with marketing, branding, and support, and we work to strengthen the local manufacturing community. We are all here for New York City's manufacturers and makers, and we brought this town hall together today to better understand the questions that you have and get some of those questions answered. Our speakers today are going to be two representatives from the Freelancers Union, Lloyd Esperance and Rafael Espinal, Mary Aloshoga from Pursuit Lending, and Andrea Tan from Legal Services Nyc. After we have everyone introduce themselves, we'll have an open Q&A. Some of you submitted questions ahead of time, so we'll start off there, but please drop additional questions in the Q&A box. We also have the chat box open for comments, links, and resources. So I'm first going to start off by briefly sharing my screen with you all to just quickly show you Made in NYC's website and go over a couple of the COVID-19 specific resources that we have so that you know what's available to you in this time through the work that Made in NYC is doing. So just waiting for it to load. Also want to say happy Friday to everyone, even though days all mixed together these days. So here is madeinnyc.org, our website. We have created, as you can see under resources, a number of COVID-19 specific resources. We have a COVID-19 information page. We have a resource database that I'll show you right now that is really meant to bring all of the resources that we're finding, that whether they are financial, technical assistance, if you want to know who's making PPE in the city and all of those types of things are right here. You can search our database by a number of different categories: emergency relief, sourcing of PPEs, learning opportunities, so any workshops or webinars that are happening, and other opportunities, business assistance, workforce, communications, funding, policy, governance, and a number of surveys where people are collecting information about everything that you all are going through. We also have an online events calendar that is aggregating all of the different events and webinars related to COVID-19 support for small businesses, and specifically manufacturers live on this calendar page. So that, you know, as you see things and you get an email here and an email there, hopefully this calendar serves to bring it all together so you don't have to go searching through inbox to see what's out there. Made in NYC is also just finishing up our free workshop programming, focusing on supporting manufacturers with marketing and branding support. So the Made in NYC Learning Lab page is here. We have moved all of our classes online, and we are almost done with our season of classes, but we are going to be planning for next year and starting back up again in September. But feel free to explore this to see what we have under DIY photography, all kinds of marketing strategy, and creative production. So with that, I would like to introduce our speakers today. I'll start off with Lloyd from the Freelancers Union. Quickly turn on video and introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lloyd. I am there we go. Hi, my name is Lloyd. I am the Chief of Staff at the Freelancers Union. I just joined the union about 2.5 weeks ago, so I've been thrown right into the mix. But I support the Executive Director, Rafael Espinal. I was the Chief of Staff of the City Council prior to joining him here at the union.
Great, thank you. Next up, Mary Aloshoga from Pursuit Lending.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Aloshoga, and I work with Pursuit Lending, and we are a community development financial institution that provides business loans and business support services throughout New York State, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And very excited to be here to share some of the resources that we have to offer. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today. And next up, Andrea Tan from Legal Services Nyc. Are you there?
Hi, everyone. I don't know why my video is not working. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, my name is Andrea. I work for Brooklyn Legal Services. It's a not-for-profit, one of the largest nonprofits that provides free civil legal services across the city. And I work in our community and economic development project, advising and providing legal support to small businesses and not-for-profits.
Great. Thank you. Thank you again. And so let's get started. We have our first question from some of the questions that you all submitted ahead of time. And this one is aimed for Lloyd and Mary, but you know, and Andrea, if you can answer this, please pop in. And it is just a general question around what sort resources and specific support exists just for sole proprietors. If there's anything that through the Freelancers Union or any of the funding opportunities that you're aware of, Mary, that we can share with everyone today. Oh, Mary, you're.
Absolutely. So on the funding side, we have the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, which is a federal program for not just small business owners with employees or with payroll, but it also applies, the second tranche also applies to solo entrepreneurs as well, freelancers, and that's available. Pursuit is actually dispersing some of the PPP loans, so we can certainly work with you on that end. Also available, and I think I shared this with you, Joanna, couple of grants that are available. You have the West Side, and I'll be more than happy to share some of that link as well in the chat box. The West Side Community Grant that is available. You have a grant from Facebook as well that is available for entrepreneurs. You also have a grant that is available through FedEx. So those are some of the opportunities. Specifically at Pursuit Lending, I manage something called the Entrepreneur of Color Fund, and that's an initiative in collaboration with JP Morgan Chase. And so we are able to still provide entrepreneurs of color, minorities, women with some access to capital opportunities. So that fund is available. Once again, I will share some of those resources. The interest rates are a little bit higher compared to, you know, what currently exists with banks right now. If you're able to get funding from a bank, I believe the interest rate will range from between 3 to about 5%, but ours is a little bit higher. If you are a veteran, we have some loans available for veteran entrepreneurs as well. which is 5.75%. I mean, 5.75%. And so there are opportunities available. Unfortunately, this time, most banks are not really lending. So it's difficult for, entrepreneurs with staff, without staff, solopreneurs to actually obtain some kind of financing from the banks, but we're still able to provide some of those lending opportunities.
Great. And can I just ask a follow-up question? A number of folks who submitted questions today were feeling that the PPP program, because they don't have employees or they don't have payroll, does not necessarily apply to them, or they weren't eligible. And you mentioned that they are. Can you just explain a little bit of that and just clarify that for folks?
Right. So if you are an entrepreneur who files a Schedule C, or if you are an S corporation, it is possible that you will qualify for PPP. As we all know, I mean, the challenge with PPP is also the loan forgiveness part, right? So there's a portion of PPP that if you follow the rules, you have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, the entire loan is actually forgiven. But a lot of people might not follow the rules, and as a result have to pay that money back plus interest. And I get the feeling that it would mostly affect a lot of solopreneurs and smaller business owners, because a lot of the bigger corporations can actually hire consultants and people to help them understand what those guidelines are. So yeah, also at Pursuit, we're looking to work with more small business owners to help them understand the process so that they can benefit from the loan forgiveness portion of PPP.
I would like to add that for sole proprietors or self-employed people that apply for the PPP, because right now there's still money. I think they've given out 188 billion out of the 300 something that they put out. But anyway, the way you want to calculate what you will automatically get forgiven, it's going to be, you look at your tax forms, Schedule C, there's the box number 31, and that's going to show your net earnings that you had from last year. And then you want to divide that between 12 months. And so then they will give you 8 weeks of last year. So I guess that would be the total multiplied by divided by 52 weeks, right? Multiplied by 8, and that's the amount that you will get. Once you're approved for that definitely will be forgiven. But then if there's any balance left, that amount you may have to pay that back, and the only way to maybe get that forgiven is if you can show that the expenses that you use that for, like your utility or rent or whatever expenses that are allowed, you also reported them in your previous taxes. So they're clear expenses that you have connected to your business.
Great, thank you. There was a follow-up question in the Q&A saying, isn't forgiveness about keeping staff hired, and does this count for solopreneurs if you're re-employing, I guess, yourself, is what they're asking.
Yeah, like I said, for entrepreneurs that are self-employed, that rule about the payroll and the number of employees, that doesn't really apply. You're
right.
Automatically getting forgiven 8 weeks. So go again to your box 31 of your taxes. If you don't have that, collect all your 1099 forms that you were given and fill out a Schedule C, because the lender will want to see that. And so then the way you know exactly what you will get is doing that divided by 52 multiplied by 8. That's what you will get forgiven.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. I think that hopefully clarified things for a lot of people. So the next question up is around the New York State Labor Department processing applications, and if anyone is aware of any updates both for unemployment benefits and PUA, and just any, specifically for solo entrepreneurs who are interested in trying to get that support. I don't know, Lloyd, at the Freelancers Union, have any of your members had success here, or do you have any experience?
Right. So right now, there are several issues with the State Department, Labor Department, when it comes to this. We've had many members who are still pending as it comes to their claims. Part of the problem and it's something that we are trying to address at the federal level, but also the state level, is that the Labor Department, through their rules, aren't looking at all forms of income for sole proprietors and freelancers. They're only looking at 1099 form, but not also including like a W-2, which sometimes freelancers use both. And this is creating a problem. This is why it's pending. So what we are attempting to do, and we're looking to maybe try to pull this off in the next couple of weeks or so, is to partner with the law school so that we could get attorneys on case that can help some freelancers and appeal through the administrative court their unemployment benefits. That's one. Two, what I would also like to add to the question I was mentioned before about PPP, I would want to flag for some people that it's when using that, the compensation in your payroll is considered net earnings from self-employment, but it is capped at 100,000. So just keep that in mind when you're applying. And I also want to flag that if you're applying for unemployment, it could also affect your PPP loan, and you can't get both. It has to be one or the other. And this has been a problem for some people. And if you were getting accepted to one, you're going to have to retract the other at some point later. So you just think about that when you're going through this process. As for the freelancers, outside of that, we created a freelance relief fund for our members. And we've gotten a large amount of applications. So at the moment it's closed. We're looking to reopen it in the near future to also help out our freelancers, whether it's with payroll, food, rent, and other items.
Great, thank you. That's really, really helpful. The next question is, does it matter how small your business is or if you've recorded a loss last year? And a couple of our companies said they were having a lot of issues because they recorded a loss and then were ineligible. And is there a way for them to get around that?
I believe that the rules are different for each city FI. For ours, you're basically your company has to be operating prior to February 15, 2020. You definitely need to at least have your tax returns filed, because that's also part of our submission process. But there is no one size fits all, because everyone's situation is different and the rules are constantly changing, based on guidelines from the US SBA. So I wouldn't say there is a one size fits all. We've seen all types of businesses, from really small companies that we work with who are part of our SBA microloan clients to really middle-sized businesses.
And hopefully, if you did not apply for hopefully you applied for the EIDL, the other SBA loan, because that one is not calculated. It doesn't have as many restrictions as the PPP. And even if you're self-employed and you're a one-person business, you can qualify for that loan. The way they've been calculating is usually $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000 for the grant. And then after $10,000, that becomes a loan, but the SBA would assess how much you need. So they would get in touch with you and assign you a loan officer. But I guess also, maybe there's also other options that you can look at for instance, microloans. I'm not sponsoring any platform or anything like that, but I know there's a place called Kiva. I don't know if you've heard of it. They issue microloans up to $15,000 with zero interest. There's also crowdfunding that a lot of people are doing to attract investors or to raise capital for their business. They use platforms like WeFund and among others that you can look up online.
Great, thank you. So we have another question that just came in asking around what opportunities there are for sole proprietors to get one-on-one assistance to aid with the specifics of processing of PPP applications. And Lloyd, I'm not sure if there's anything related to the work the Freelancers Union is doing or if the answer is no, that's okay too. But if there's anything that you guys know of where there's opportunity for companies to get that help.
I actually don't know, but it's something, I think this is a good idea, and it's something I think I'll discuss with the executive director about trying to maybe establish something next week, given the experience we have with the PPP applications and also with our members. I think we could be helpful. So it's something I think we'll be able to get back to you on.
Great. And actually, Lloyd, if I just follow up a little bit right here, I'm not sure how many of our members are also part of the Freelancers Union, and just if you could quickly give like a brief what would be required of companies, and it possibly might be a benefit for folks to access any of the support you're providing.
Right. So to join the Freelancers Union is very simple. It's free. It's basically you go to the website, freelancersunion.org. You enter your information, which is simple. It's your name, email address, I think number. And then it opens up to a whole host of resources. So you'll have resources for discounts. You also get resources on how to advocate and apply for different benefits. And we're also an advocacy organization, so we're working to advocate for freelancers and sole proprietors at the state, local, and federal level. So I really encourage anyone to join because of like the benefits that you'll get in the long term, and it's just also a great community of freelancers and sole proprietors. We have meetings, or now it's virtual, but basically like once a month there's like a small community meeting. We have a hub in Brooklyn, which hopefully will open up in the next few months, where it's like an organic place where people, it's almost like a WeWork space, but a dedicated space of freelancers where it's free. And you have access to a lot of other things. But I think it's totally worth joining. And as we go through this process, I think we're gonna start giving more and more resources to members.
And I know about a resource for people that need assistance with their finances, organizing that, and maybe applying for PPP loans, etc. It's a not-for-profit called Start Small, Think Big. I believe you could request their assistance, which is free, going to their website, startsmallthinkbig.org.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, they're doing great work and are also running a lot of webinars and resources for companies. The next question that I see coming in is a question around, is the PPP loan worth it because it may not last as long as needed? And this is sort of, maybe a little bit of opinion, but if any of you have worked with companies or know companies and have insight there.
I would say absolutely that the PPP resource is definitely worth it. I mean, I think this is the COVID-19 is something that has not happened before, right? So people are coming up with different responses to this current crisis. And so I think it's very important as small business owners to get resources from different places to the extent that you can. So if you can apply for a PPP, if you can apply for EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, if you can apply for different grants, if you will qualify for a loan with a CDFI, I certainly say go for it. I mean, I think what makes a lot of small business owners very nervous is that we don't know when this lockdown will end. We don't know if it will continue to be extended, or we don't know if it's going to end, May 28th. And so, those are some of the things. And how do you keep your business going? Whether you're an e-commerce business now, I know that the last time we spoke, Joanna, you said one of the things that your organization does is really help companies get online and really build their online portfolio and different things like that. So, e-commerce is going to be very important, but then how do you get that cash flow to keep your business sustainable in the duration of this lockdown? And I think it's important to apply to available resources that are there for small business owners.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that, if you could briefly, so a number of companies that I talk to don't know what a CDFI is. And so community,
development financial
institution. If you could just in like one or two lines, just for anyone on the line who isn't sure what that is.
Right. So a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, serves as an alternative lender in the lending space. So, for example, when New York Business Development Corporation, we have now rebranded as Pursuit, was founded over 60 years ago. We were founded because a group of bankers came together and said, where do people go when small business owners get declined from a loan at a bank? And so NYBDC, New York Business Development Corporation, was formed. So it's sort of like an alternative institution that provides lending options to small business owners. So yeah, that's what a CDFI is. There are a couple of people in the same space. We have Accion, Pursuit, there are a couple of them. I think Start Small Think Big too does some form of lending as well. Kiva, so there are a couple of CDFIs that are available.
Great, thanks for that overview. Yeah, I'm always surprised at how many businesses I talk to aren't aware of that resource, so I appreciate that a lot.
Sure.
Okay, so back to the questions. And I think we covered this one a little bit, but we talked about, so the question is, how do I get financial relief if I do not have employees on payroll? What if I hire and only pay 1099 independent contractors? Now, Andrea, you were talking a little bit about this. Do you mind just rehashing what you would do with your 1099 just real quick for everybody?
Yes, if you're a small business, usually you rely a lot on independent contractors to help you do your work. So you pay them and then you give them 1099. So unfortunately, you cannot count them in your loan request, right? But if you are the one that has been receiving, if you are the independent contractor and you've been paid with 1099s, then you should gather all of your 1099s that you've been given to figure out what your tax return would look like, because based on that tax return is where the PPP lender is going to quantify how much money you are approved for and how much is going to be forgivable. Okay.
So I guess just to clarify, just one more. So if you only use 1099 contractors and don't have payroll, they still cannot count. That is the answer to that. But you as yourself does count, which we want to make clear. So, yeah. So the answer is that if you only use 1099 contractors, they just are not incorporated into that at all. Right. Okay. So this was a question, and I know we mentioned earlier that you can't have both. You are not allowed to receive both the PPP and unemployment. Lloyd, I know you mentioned this, and someone was asking, is there a way to then decline the PPP loan if you prefer to get the other? And, does that jeopardize your standing in some way or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that many lenders, they will, I'm so sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, you can answer it. It's fine.
I think that a lot of lenders, when you apply for the PPP, they're going to ask you if you're receiving those benefits, and that may affect your application. If you already received the PPP and then at the same time got approved for the unemployment benefits and you figured out that that's the best way for you to go, you can talk to your lender about rejecting the PPP loan, and I'm sure that you can give it back. But it depends on your lender, so contact them right away.
There's also, I should say that there's also a timeline of when you have to spend PPP money. So it's not money that just sits there. And, the goal of PPP is to help hire, rehire, and retain staff. That's really the goal. It's sort of like a payroll program. So the money just doesn't sit there and wait for you to get unemployment, because I also get a lot of phone calls from different people stating that, asking the same question, and they have not yet received their unemployment benefit. And so they're saying, should I wait till I get a response from Department of Labor, or do I start utilizing my PPP? So there's a lot of confusion, but I will say PPP is not money that just sits there for you to say, okay, in 2 months, if I hear from New York State Department of Labor, then I'm gonna make that decision. There's a deadline and a timeline to when you have to utilize PPP funds.
That's a great point, and it's 8 weeks. So from the moment that they give you the money, put it in your account, you have 8 weeks to use it in the way that you're supposed to. So I guess for some people, you could, if you haven't heard back from the unemployment, which by the way, it's taking about 3 weeks to get back to you from the moment you applied until you get your actual benefits. So if you got the PPP first, maybe you use that, and when you run out of that money, then you apply for the unemployment. Or you just reject the PPP the moment you're approved, you don't take the money, and then you apply for the PUA.
Right, because the range for PPP funds that we've been doing at Pursuit has really ranged from about 8,000 to about 25,000. That's not enough money versus if you qualified for unemployment, I believe, which is about $700 or $600 a week, or even more for certain people. So, you know, you really have to pick your battles wisely when it comes to that as well.
Yeah, and if you got, let's say that you have the unemployment and your PPP was pending, that's another scenario. Maybe you're cashing your unemployment. That is a weekly thing, so you have to recertify every week. So let's say in week 2, you end up getting your PPP, then you're gonna have to say that, disclose that in your recertification for unemployment, and then probably if you are getting more than $504 in that week from your PPP, then you're not going to qualify for the unemployment. But again, once you run out of your PPP money, then you can go back to applying for the unemployment, which it could be up to like $4,000 a month, because it's $600 a week plus up to $504 from the state of New York. So that's $1,100 a week that you could make with unemployment.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Lloyd, do you have anything to add? I know you were gonna, no? Okay. Thanks. Okay, we're gonna move on. And this question is specifically around EIFL loans. Are there any updates? This particular business got an advance and grant 2 weeks ago, but now are waiting for the loan and are stuck in the queue. Any insight? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the economic injury disaster loans, I don't know of anyone who's actually gotten the loan, but yes, a lot of small business owners have received the grant, which is up to $10,000. The loan is up to $2 million. Interest rate for for-profit businesses is 3.75%, and for nonprofit, 2.75%. But I do not know of anyone that has received the loans yet, but a lot of people have received the grants. Typically, you know, pre-COVID-19, the SBA process takes a minimum of 8 weeks. So I would imagine that it's not a process that would happen like really quickly. So I would, you know, say that people consider being more patient. And also it's important to say that Pursuit also is an SBA preferred lender. So we're still doing a lot of lending for the SBA 504 loans, the SBA 7A loans, and the SBA Community Advantage loans. So those SBA loan products are still around and still available for small business owners. And it's easier to apply for SBA loan products if you have your documentation. So please work with your accountants or any kind of financial advisor that you have to help put together your documentation.
Great, thank you.
I saw that the EIDL loan, I just checked the website of the SBA today before the event, and even though it's open again, it's being replenished for a second round. They're only letting agricultural businesses to apply. So unfortunately, if you haven't applied during the first round, you cannot apply unless you're agricultural. And for those applications that are pending from the first round, I saw that last month they were only giving up to, they were putting a cap of $15,000 per applicant. So your loan may not be more than, you know, $5,000 besides your $10,000 grant.
Okay, thanks. So I guess it sounds like if a company has not gotten that yet, you're not alone. So it's not that you're stuck in the queue and something's wrong, which I think is helpful information to know, is that that is a slower process, and that you're not the only one. Okay, so next question is, okay, so this is a company that needs assistance, but that doesn't depend on payroll taxes because she doesn't pay herself or anyone else. If that makes sense with how her company operates, she's very, very small and starting out. Do you have any guidance here? And if, you know, or an answer of how she should go about that, or if there aren't opportunities or are for them? No thoughts?
I mean, if you're saying that you don't have employees and you just take draws, but you don't pay yourself, you don't put yourself on payroll, right?
That's what it says. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess if you don't see any net earnings reported in your Schedule C, then if you don't have that at all, then you probably won't qualify for PPP. If you didn't apply for that EIDL loan, you missed your chance so far. But there are other options that are always out there, like Mary was talking about. Maybe you can approach your local credit union or the bank that you do business with. You could apply for microloans with these other platforms online, or maybe extend your line of credit with your lender. Those are other options.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see. Someone is asking if they applied for funding, are they allowed to reapply and add 3 to 4 employees after they've already put in? No, right?
No, you cannot do that.
Thank you.
Those are SBA rules. You cannot do that.
Yeah.
Once you apply for PPP and you've received some funding, you cannot reapply to get additional funding. At least those are the rules for now. Whether or not that will change, maybe as the lockdown's extended, we don't know, but those are the rules for now. I mean, even currently, if someone has applied at a bank and they're still pending, it's usually challenging when they come to us and are looking to apply again, because we can make faster loan decisions, and that issue has come up. Now, if your application with the bank has gotten to the point whereby you have the E-Tran number with the SBA, we can't really touch that loan because you already have that number with the SBA. So if you've already received PPP, you cannot apply and, to get more money. That's it.
Great. There's a comment in the comments that I would like to bring up, and just so we can clarify this for people, make sure everyone's walking away with the right information. It says that I thought the head count or full-time equivalents needs to be the same or higher at the end of the 8 weeks in order for PPP to be forgiven. So if you go on unemployment after the PPP runs out, then your loan would not actually be forgiven. Is that correct? Is anybody?
I think it depends if you are a self-employed person or if you are a corporation that submits payroll and you have W-2 employees, right? Because if you're self-employed, that rule about the full-time equivalent employees, that doesn't apply to you. As I said before, the only rule that applies to you is that you get 8 weeks from your net earnings of last year, and you automatically get that forgiven. Now, if you do hire W-2 employees, maybe you have 1 or 2 or whatever, right? It's complicated to figure out how much you're gonna get forgiven. I suggest that you talk to your accountant, right? Or a financial advisor that knows about this. But from what I understand, they let you, so during the 8 weeks, they will compare how many hours you had people working, right? Those are the full-time equivalent employee hours. And then they're gonna compare that to, you have 2 options. Either the period of time from last year, during those 8 weeks that you worked last year, or January and February of this year. So if you had less employees if you had more employees last year than during the 8 weeks, the total amount forgivable is going to be proportionally reduced. So you may end up owing the money. So that's why there's some tools out there where you could do in a spreadsheet to calculate what is the best period to choose for that formula. So talk to your lender about the forgiveness part and looking into that. Yeah, you have options to choose between 2 periods, but it will be reduced for sure if you don't maintain the exact same levels.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, there's another question, and I think this will be a quick one, a quick answer. It's what if I have not yet filed my 2019 taxes, just 2018? Are they still good to go or not to apply? Lloyd, I see you shaking your head no.
Yeah, it's my understanding that it wouldn't count towards this, but I will also leave this to the lender who might have a better understanding of this. But from what I know, from what I've read, I don't think you can use your 2018 taxes for the specific PPP.
And
yes, it has to be 2019 numbers. Yes.
Okay.
And numbers as recent as February 15, 2020. So that's the cutoff.
Okay.
But it has to be most recent numbers, which would be 2019.
So if someone has not So if someone has not yet filed, they're kind of stuck in a difficult situation, essentially.
It is. They either need to file, or if they have an accountant who can help them put together profit and loss statements, cash flow balance sheet, like to get some of those numbers so that they can complete the application, they can certainly do that. But it's advisable to certainly file your 2019, whether it's personal or business tax returns.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And there's another question that came in, and I think that I believe that we answered it already, but I just want to make sure. So I know people, so we know that the rule was that if you apply, you cannot reapply for PPP and like add new people. And so I want just being clear that you cannot reapply for PPP at all, right? You apply once and that's it.
That is correct.
Thanks. Just making sure.
If we want to say something,
If the rules change, I mean, we don't know how it's going to change, but for now, those are the rules, the SBA rules, yes.
Great. Thank you.
I think it may be a good thing too if you end up hiring more people during the 8 weeks, right? Because maybe that will help you get a piece of what you got forgiven.
Okay.
Because maybe right now you don't have as many, you normally, if you don't have as much business, you would have not had the same number of employees that you had before, right? So, and they calculated what you borrowed based on that. So if you hired more people, that will help you at least maintain the forgiveness.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just looking through to pull up our next question. The next question is getting back a little bit to this. So we've kind of established, what the situation is for someone who doesn't depend on, who needs assistance that does not depend on payroll taxes. The follow-up question is, are grants and GoFundMe's my only option? And really what the heart of this question is, are there tax implications with GoFundMe's if you're using that as a way to support yourself right now? Andrea, I see you just unmuted yourself. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that if you are self-employed and you have a small business and you don't qualify for all these loan programs, I think that the best option for you is to apply for the pandemic unemployment assistance because it's a pretty substantial amount. At the same time, you need to evaluate your own finances and see if you can postpone some payments, get forbearance in some of your accounts, like try to control things like that at first. Get the unemployment, and then if you need more than that, and you want to do a GoFundMe or some kind of crowdfunding, there may be tax consequences for you. I can double check and get back to you later, but there's gift tax laws, and if you receive more than a certain amount of money, I'm not sure if it's up to $5,000 or more than $7,000, you will have to pay taxes. And sometimes GoFundMe will send you a 1099 form. I don't remember what the name of the form is. It may be a 1099-G or something like that. Is a return, so that you would have to report it in your taxes. So yes, there may be tax consequences, but maybe not, depending on how much you raise.
Great, thank you. That's really, really helpful. So this is the next question is a quick paperwork question around unemployment for self-employed folks. If you are a sole proprietor without a salary, can you just show your Schedule C, which I think is what we said earlier. Just want to confirm since that question came up again. Andrea, is that correct? Oh, hold on, you're muted.
Oh.
Sorry. There you go.
Yeah, you need to have your Schedule C, that's it. And like Mary said, ideally, the lender will want you to have filed the taxes to look at those profit and loss expenses. But if you don't have that, work with your accountant, like Mary said, to get that completed.
Great. This next question I'm going to throw to the Freelancers Union crew and just see if you have you've made any progress with any of your members. So someone is asking what the best way is to follow up if we applied for unemployment benefits weeks ago, but haven't heard anything back. Are there any ways that you've been able to see your members kind of break through that barrier and that issue?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Joanna, for having us. I'm Rafael Espinal. I'm the new executive director / president of the Freelancers Union. And I'm really happy to really be here working with Made NYC in partnership to get this information out to independent workers out there, sole proprietors who are, honestly, quite frankly, having the toughest time through this pandemic, getting cash flow into their homes. They're really, this pandemic has shown that they're one of the most vulnerable populations, especially when it comes to the social safety nets that exist out there. It has really shed a light on the need for a larger social safety net and more support from our governments on all levels to provide benefits like unemployment insurance to this population. So we have a lot of workers who have gone almost 2 months, not more, without a source of income. So a program like unemployment insurance should be working for them right now. And what we're seeing is that it's not. So if you're someone who has been waiting, whether because your application says that you're still pending or because you have not been able to get through the line in general, I have a few pieces of advice. And these are all pieces of advice, of course, that have worked for folks in different ways. There is no silver bullet on how to get a response from DOL at this moment. But I encourage you, one, is to reach out to your local state official, whether it be your state assembly person or your state senator. They have a direct line to the Department of Labor's Intergovernmental Affairs division, which means they can call directly to help get your application bumped up. Another method that we have seen work is that when you have folks directly tweet at DOL, NYSDOL, they have been able to get a live person respond to them. And then, the DOL has also expanded their hours to go past 5 p.m. up until 7:30. And I do believe they're also working on the weekends. The general population is not aware of that. So I think that if you're trying to get through, you have a better chance at making those calls after 5 p.m. and potentially the weekend. I'm not sure if they're still open on the weekends, but if they are on the weekend, because you'll have less people calling around those times. But you do have to dedicate a lot of your time making those calls and trying to break through. But I think those pieces of advice will give you a better shot at getting into the system right now.
And I think that it should be better now, because in the beginning it was really confusing because self-employed people didn't have a specific platform to submit their claims. You had to apply through the traditional unemployment, get denied, then apply. Then they changed that and they had 2 forms. So people were submitting 2 different forms. So that created a lot of confusion. But now that they've streamlined the process, I think it should take less time. If you have particular questions about your unemployment claim or pandemic unemployment claim, I can give out our hotline. We have experts that do unemployment insurance claims, and it's a not-for-profit. So if you qualify, it would be free assistance. The number is 917-661-4500, 917-661-4500. It's Legal Services Nyc.
Great, thank you, Andrea. And everyone, and Rafael, it's nice to see you. Thanks for coming. I know you've had a busy day today, so we appreciate you being here. So the next question that we're going to pull up is, it's something that we were talking about earlier, the EIDL, and that we established that if you have not received that yet, you are not alone, and that is this much slower process. The question is more surrounding that they were trying to call the Georgia office to speak to someone at the East Coast Disaster Center, and that they were not able to update their system. And does anyone have a good phone number for the SBA office that works, that will reach a person? If the answer is no, then but if anyone has a phone number that they know will reach someone, please share.
Actually, the SBA refers all their calls to us.
Really? Okay,
So
there you go.
We do have the SBA as our partners, but I'm not sure if we're allowed to share that publicly.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Thanks. So yeah, it sounds like it's best to work with the lender, the partner that you're working with that you've applied through, and really have them be your support in that process.
The SBA website says that it takes them, if you apply for the IDL, because that's the kind of loan and grant that you apply directly with the SBA, that it takes them about 21 days to process your request because of the volume and the amount of funding that they had. Is probably taking longer than that. But once they reply to you, it should take 5 days for them to give you the money. And then at that point, if you qualify for a loan, right, not just the express grant, they will assign you a loan officer. So at that point, you will have the contact, a specific contact at the SBA. If you haven't heard back, I doubt that there's a way for you to reach out to somebody. It's a matter of just waiting.
Okay, thank you. All right, so our next question, I think a combination of even myself and the freelancers, Rafael and Lloyd, should be able to answer this. It's around what resources are available for sole proprietors for web development, inventory management, and marketing. And wondering if there's any tools that any of your members are using to support with inventory management or any of those other needs.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's really, I think at this point, it's really hard to really look for programs that work for certain sectors and industries. We've been really focused on independent contractors and sole proprietors as a whole. And I encourage you to see, I think there's a lot of industries or leaders in industries that have been putting a lot of relief funds where they've been fundraising internally to get direct grants to folks. So I encourage you to look into that. But if you're someone that works in those spaces and relies on co-working spaces, the union right now, normally we run a free co-working space that's made available to folks that you can come and utilize. So when things get back to normal, that is available for free for you to use. You want to pay a membership fee to do your work, to be able to go out and do your work and co-work with other folks. And then, I would say all the other federal programs that are out there apply to you as well. All the PUA, all the EIDL, PPP, these are programs that are made for anyone who's self-employed, no matter what industry you're in. So I encourage you to look into that.
Great, thank you. So I also wanted to jump in here because the question touched on marketing and web development, and Made in NYC. We offer all of the Made in NYC Learning Lab programs that I was speaking about earlier at the beginning are all free to companies that are making a physical product within one of the 5 boroughs. We have a whole workshop series around website UX, around SEO and website optimization. We have a branding and identity workshop, and a whole digital marketing series that is free if you're a local NYC manufacturer and maker of any size. And so we are just about finishing that. We have one more workshop left for the season next week, but starting in September, we'll start up again with all of those free marketing resources. There's also, so because Made in NYC is part of the Pratt Center, which is an organization that is part of Pratt Institute, we are able to have all Pratt Institute professors be the instructors for all of the courses that we offer. And so there has been some matchmaking opportunities we've been able to do around website support, branding support with faculty, staff, and students at Pratt Institute. So I would keep an eye out for NYC's resources as well in that bucket. Yeah. So jumping back to some heavier questions, this has been an issue. The next question has been an issue and a question that a lot of our companies are struggling with around rent and relief for commercial tenants and for commercial rents. And I know it's something that we've all been kind of thinking and talking about. And if anyone, I don't know, Rafael, if you have any insight into whether that's even possible, or if you think that will ever happen, and what, and if you have any advice on someone who's struggling with rent right now.
Yeah. So what we've been doing with some of our clients at Pursuit is that we're reaching out to them and encouraging them to speak with their landlords for a deferment. because I think it's very important to have that kind of conversations and to not just continue paying rent. So the feedback so far has been that landlords have been very responsive and are giving people deferments. Some are also giving them like discounts on their rent and things like that. You know, especially as a lot of restaurants and businesses have had to close down due to what's going on. So it's important to speak with your landlord. I'm not sure if there's anything official at the state level or city level. Maybe the Freelancers Union is aware of more, but I know that's what we've been doing because we have a lot of loan clients in our portfolio and we're trying to help them to save as much money as possible by encouraging them to speak with their
Oh, there you are. Rafael, anything to add?
Well, it's going to come down to advocacy. There's really nothing official. You know, there's a lot of conversation about canceling rent across the board for tenants, canceling mortgages, which means, you know, relief and subsidies along those lines. So we're going to have to push our state legislators and the governor to create a real comprehensive plan on how we're going to create relief to keep, you know, be able to keep, you know, businesses within their commercial spaces. Also, it's important to push the mayor's office. I think there's a lot of conversation about what relief they're going to create. So SBS is going to play an important role around those conversations. So it's going to come down to advocacy, planning, and then pushing legislators to bring this to the forefront as an issue to feed funding into.
Great.
I should also add too that a lot of banks have given landlords relief on mortgages, but that is not the landlords are not passing that down to the tenants. So it's also important to clarify that part, that a lot of banks have actually given commercial landlords relief on their mortgages, but some landlords are not.
Okay, yeah, they're not sharing. So
I love that you should check your lease first because you want to see what happens when you start defaulting, what happens if you're late. You want to see if there's anything in your lease that excuses you from paying the rent. You can always reach out to your landlord before you default to see if you can negotiate a payment plan. I've seen clients get, they're paying 50% of the rent now, and then the remainder, they have payment plans starting next year. Or maybe they're extending the term of their lease. So it works out sort of like a balloon payment, where the amount of money that you cannot pay now, you pay it at the end of the lease. Maybe they increase your rent, stuff like that. In the end, right now, the courts are not considering eviction cases essential needs. So even if you don't pay the rent, you're not going to be evicted, but you're still gonna owe that rent. And as soon as they leave that order, they could take you to court.
And that can also impact your credit as well, which is very terrible. So there are all these consequences as a result of that. So that's why we encourage clients in our portfolio to speak with their landlords. You have to talk to them, sit them down, try to negotiate, ask for a deferment, but you need to have that conversation, because once COVID-19 passes and hopefully we have a vaccine for this, you know, you don't want your credit to be ruined as a result of this, because there are lots of consequences that impact you know, once you don't have good credit anymore.
Yeah, I just also want to add, when it comes to advocacy, there's one bill that's being looked at that was introduced by Assemblymember Robert Carroll in Brooklyn, and it's to, you know, a lot of businesses have business interruption insurance, and what happened was that at some point in the past 10 years, viruses were removed as a clause from one of the disruptances that the insurance would capture or cover. No one thought that there'll be a virus like coronavirus that would hit our economy in the way it has. So the bill will require businesses to cover viruses as one of the disruptions to their businesses. So you can be able to access that insurance that exists and help you pay for all of these costs. So it's the business disruption insurance bill. Robert Carroll in the Assembly has it. Reach out to his office. He's looking for allies to help advocate and getting that.
That's a great point. At the same time, you should look at your insurance policy right now and see what it says about that, and maybe file a claim and see what happens. It probably will be denied because, like Rafael said, they removed that protection when they had the SARS epidemic, and they knew, oh, this is going to cost us money in the future. So they very clever removed that protection, you know?
Okay. There's a follow-up question specifically for a business who has a hostile landlord that has a history of locking out tenants. And they are just really at a loss as to where to go and what resources. It's just, so is it any resources that we might be able to send this particular business?
I would say reach out to your legislator. That way they can get the appropriate agencies in case this landlord is breaking any rules or laws, especially now during the pandemic. Those agencies will hold them accountable.
Right, and also you can also reach out to the Department of Small Business Services. They certainly have some tools and resources that are available as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you, I mean, that constitutes tenant harassment, and it's an illegal lockout, and those actually are being looked at by the courts right now. Those are emergency type of cases. So if you get locked out of your business, you should contact the civil court and try to file for, a temporary restraining order so that they can give you access.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pivot the topic a little bit for a moment. We have a number of companies who have had a lot of issues with unpaid invoices because people that they work with are now unable to pay them. And so if there's any advice or I think Raphael and Lloyd, you might have some insight as you work with so many freelancers, sole proprietors around this issue in particular.
Yeah, so back in 2017, the Freelancers and Free Act was passed in the city council, and it was a law designed to, helping sole proprietors, S Corp, C Corp, independent contractors to recoup, wages that clients weren't paying. So that law does exist. The Department of Consumer Affairs, Department of Consumer Worker Protections is in charge of enforcing it. So you can call 311 and file a complaint. If it's gotten to a level or to a point where you believe you're not going to get paid, I would suggest that's the best route for you to do. And the city will reach out to that client and notifying them that they can face fines and fees if they don't pay you in a timely manner. Also, if it gets to a point where you have to hire a lawyer to recoup those fees, to recoup those wages, the law would require for your client to pay those lawyer fees as well. So look into this law. It's there to help you recoup your wages. It's the Freelancers and Free Act, and the Department of Consumer and Worker Protections are the ones that is the agency in charge of enforcing that law. And the union played a pivotal role in getting that law passed.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful.
And I would add to that of course you want to, before you take legal action or do all those things, right? You want to document that you have been trying to reach out to these customer client, trying to get your money paid. And there are different ways that you can do that, right? I assume you could reach out directly to the client. Maybe you could call and say, hi, I need your help. Can you call me back? So then you don't leave a voicemail saying, I need you to pay me, because they're not gonna call you. So then maybe you say, yeah, call me back. I wanna talk to you about something. Then they call you back and then you demand the money at that point. And maybe at that point you can negotiate payment terms. Maybe they need an extension. So you could do, net 30, net 60 or whatever extensions of that. Or maybe you could offer to waive any late fees if you need to, try to negotiate and maybe also focus on your clients that are the larger ones that are most likely to have money, right? So maybe you could reach out to those first rather than the smaller ones and just be strategic with your business decisions.
And I saw someone ask whether the law applies to clients that are out of state. It depends on the situation. If this client has business in New York City, then yes. If they hired you and they have business in New York City, then yes, this law applies to them. I would say it depends on if they were doing work in New York City or not.
And check also whatever your contract is with your client, because the contract may have a provision about the place where lawsuits are going to take place, like if any litigation is going to take place in New York, or maybe it says that you have to do alternative dispute resolution. So you and the client agree that you wouldn't sue each other, that you would do mediation or whatever. So you want to see what your contract allows you to do. And I don't know about the Freelancers Act, but check and see if you would be exempt from that kind of clauses in your contract.
Great, thank you guys. Just waiting for the next question to come in. This has definitely been really helpful. Appreciate all these questions. It's become very clear that, you know, our sole proprietors have some very specific challenges. And so thankful that you're all here to answer everyone's questions. If anyone else in the town hall right now has questions, please drop them in the chat in the Q&A, and we'll get those to our speakers. All right, so it seems like we have a question pivoting back to the PPP funding. So it says that the PPP program requires net profit on the 1040 Schedule C line 31. What happens if you have net loss in 2019 but are showing net profit for 2020 so far?
I think that you can, at least for other businesses, so for sole proprietors they were using last year and that's it. I wonder if you could show January and February of this year, if that's when maybe your business grew. Because I know that for other applicants that have W-2 kind of payroll, they can choose to use either January and February to calculate their loan as opposed to last year. So maybe file some kind of tax for these 2 months, like just to have the financial statement to show, and ask the lender if they could consider that.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Just waiting for a couple of more questions to come in before we keep going. We have about 20 minutes left. We're going till 4 p.m. So yeah, if you're online, you have additional questions, make sure to get them our way. I guess while we are waiting to get more questions in, Mary, I know you were kind of talking a little bit. I asked you to kind of describe to everyone what a CDFI is. And if you could talk for a minute just about how a company engages with Pursuit Lending if they are interested in working with you all.
Absolutely. So like I was saying, I manage the Entrepreneur of Color Fund at Pursuit Lending. And so the Entrepreneur of Color Fund provides lending options, financial access to capital resources to MWBEs throughout New York City. Before, we were specifically focused on the Bronx, but now as a result of COVID-19, we're able to spread out our financial resources throughout New York City. So certainly if you have a business, you're an entrepreneur of color, MWBE, we can certainly work with you. Those resources are still available. This is as a result of our collaborative partnership with JP Morgan Chase. We also have other loan resources that are available as well. Like I stated before, SBA loan products are still ongoing. We have the SBA 504 loans, SBA 7A loans, SBA Community Advantage loans. So those resources are still available. Certainly documentation that has been stressed out during this entire webinar or Zoom meeting has been, really emphasized. Really have your documentation. It becomes difficult to work with the SBA if you do not have documentation. And something that I had said during another town hall meeting earlier in the week is that it's also important for people to realize that because we're in a pandemic and a lot of people are extremely desperate, it's important to also watch out for online predatory lenders and any kind of scam that's out there. Very, very important, because a lot of people realize that small business owners need the capital. So it's important that you can vouch for whoever you're planning to borrow money from. Certainly taking tools by Made in NYC team, but that's also important because there are a lot of people out there ready, willing, and able to take advantage of people who are in dire need of financial support. So that's also important to watch out for online predator lenders. Their interest rates are extremely high. They start taking money out of your account, whether there's money in there or not. So it's important to also watch out for some of those online predator lenders.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's really important. And we want to make sure that everyone is, protecting their businesses and themselves as much as possible from those types of scams, which can be really harmful.
And also check, speaking of scams, check about the DOL, because they call you, Department of Labor will call you to certify your information for your unemployment. And if somebody starts asking you weird questions about your identity and things like that, maybe just verify that the number that they're calling you from belongs to the Department of Labor phone number. I don't have it on the top of my head. I think it starts with a 816 or something like that, but like you can probably Google the number that is calling you, and also check your own online account to make sure that that you're not giving away your information to a fraudulent caller.
Great, thank you. We did have another question come in, and it is around applications for SBA funding. It says that in one of the SBA forms, I put down only 2 people as employees. However, I have many more, but most of them are off the books in cash, on a cash and carry basis. Is there any way to remedy this?
Absolutely not. The SBA focuses extensively on documentation. There's no way around it. I mean, the SBA will not work with you if you have any kind of bankruptcy, tax liens, or any kind of judgments against you. So those are important, that you have your documentation, and every employee that you have is properly accounted for.
Great, thank you.
I think CDFIs might be a bit more flexible, because since CDFIs have been processing PPP loans, the number of loan applicants, the number of MWBEs who have received the PPP has increased significantly since the involvement of CDFIs. So CDFIs play a very important role within various communities as well. So, I mean, in the first tranche of the PPP loan, we saw that a lot of banks mostly worked with bigger businesses, and the numbers of MWBs who received PPP was significantly low, and that was very disturbing. But since the involvement of CDFIs, that number has changed significantly.
Great, thank you. That's really, really helpful. Next question is, if I have an LLC business, but I'm the sole member, but it is a sole member LLC, and we had a loss last year, are we eligible for the EIDL?
Yeah, I think the documentation for the requirements for what the SBA is looking for is on their website, I believe, for EIDL. And I believe reaching out to them specifically, because the SBA is the one that handles, disburses any kind of funds for EIDL, not the CDFIs. So I think someone from the SBA might be best able to answer that.
Okay, great, thanks. While we wait for a couple more questions, Andrea, can you just give a quick brief overview of what Legal Services NYC does and how our companies, similarly to how Mary kind of spoke about Pursuit, and we did Freelancers Union earlier. Lloyd, thank you for that little overview. How could companies work with Legal Services NYC if they need services from you?
Yeah, so we are a non-for-profit organization, so all the services are free. We do civil legal services, and for small businesses or not-for-profit organizations, we're mostly providing advice and guidance about the different funding programs. We can also give you advice about transactional matters, contract issues. We can help you make a plan for negotiating your lease terms with your commercial landlord. And those sort of things, anything related to a small business. And we're prioritizing issues that are related to COVID-19 at the moment. But feel free to call the hotline that I provided earlier. They will connect you with my office, and then eventually, if you qualify for the services, you'll probably end up talking to me.
Great, thank you so much. That was great. I want to make sure that all of our companies are aware of what your organizations are doing and how they might be able to interact and engage with you if it's helpful for them as they run their businesses and are getting through this tough time. We had another question that came in that says, we were advised to apply for unemployment because we are so small. Finally got a call back and we are approved. That's good news. But the website will not let me on. What else can we as a tiny business with no payroll but high rent do? Oh, Rafael, hold on, you're muted. There.
Yeah, I mean, if you got approved, that's the good news. I guess for us, it's interesting. It would be important to know why you have to get back on the website. Are you trying to recertify? Are you trying to get in touch with someone? But if you have been approved, then you should be certifying every week that you're still unemployed in order to get the payment for that week.
Okay. We'll wait. I'll see if we get follow-up, but thanks for answering that. I'm going to wait for a couple more questions to come in, but also we have 12 minutes left. So as I mentioned, we're going to 4. Wanted to quickly just update everyone. So we are Made in NYC. This is our second town hall that we've done. We are also running weekly office hours for Made in NYC businesses. So if you are a local manufacturer maker, if you're already a member, if you're not a member yet, we encourage you to attend office hours so that you can become a member. Our membership is also free, as mentioned earlier. And our office hours are myself and my colleague Mariah Chinchilla, our manager of membership and engagement. We are making ourselves available to Made in NYC members on a weekly basis every Thursday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. There is an opportunity for companies to sign up for a one-on-one 15-minute consultation with one of us during the first hour of office hours. And then we also have just a group networking hour for businesses to connect with each other, with organizations that support manufacturers. We've had a number of different people join to be able to commiserate, share stories, share advice with each other, and just be a part of that, as well as get some custom one-on-one assistance from Mariah and myself. So just wanted to make sure everyone knows that, after this town hall, if there's additional things that you really want to talk to one of us about, please attend our town hall, our office hours. We'll be doing them weekly until for a long future. All right, I think that we have a follow-up question that just came in related to the Department of Labor question and the unemployment. It said that I called the 888 number and was certified 2 times, but still have not received any money. I don't know if you've heard this happening to any of your other members at the Freelancers Union.
Yeah, I mean, it can take up to 3 weeks until you see your first payment on your bank account. So just continue to certify and wait. If it happens to be more than 3 weeks, then I would say reach out to Made in NYC, reach out to us, and we'll be able to look into it further. But yeah, you just have to be patient. You should be able to get your funding at some point in the next week or so.
And it will be retroactive to the day that you were not able to work. The $600 though, that's going to be retroactive to the day that the federal law was passed, which was in April. So if you lost work in March, don't expect a retro for the $600 from March, because that one work, but for the other one, yes.
Great. This is another question on the same topic, and I guess just it's an attempt to kind of make sure this is clear. I think that the unemployment application process can be really clumsy and difficult for a lot of the businesses that we work with. And so the question says, I have never applied for unemployment insurance before. The ins and outs of applying, the requirement of recertifying is all new to me. Is there anyone who can lay out in straightforward terms how this program works and what we should be expecting? Should we be chasing the DOL if they haven't been in touch, or is it a sit and wait type of game if anyone has like a nice.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. This is the first time in history in which the federal and state governments are administering unemployment insurance to sole proprietors, independent contractors, freelancers. So it's all new to everyone, right? Even to the government itself who's administering these programs. But you do, so, in order to qualify, you would have to go on a DOL's website, try to put your application in. Once you do that, there are many times where it might ask you, you have to wait for a call back within 72 hours. And then you wait for that call for 72 hours. After 72 hours, that call may or may not come. So then you end up calling them and you call repeatedly. And I'm giving the real life scenario that's happening now. You call repeatedly until you're able to get through. Once you're able to get through, it's to give them the rest of the information that they're looking for, just kind of give the final certification on whether or not you qualify. And then when you get that confirmation from them, then you sit back and then you have to certify every single week that you're unemployed in order to start getting those payments into your bank account on a weekly basis.
And I would like to add something like probably helpful for people that are applying for the PUA. So when you apply online, there's a section in the application that asks you to put the name of the business or the employer. So instead of typing any, just type self-employed in that blank section. Then, yeah, like Rafael said, you have to recertify every single week. Even if you're not receiving the money, you have to be recertifying. That's very helpful. The way they're gonna probably calculate your benefit rate, it's going to be what you used to make in a week, half of that, and then plus $600. So that's what you will probably get. Now, another important thing for you to keep in mind is that, let's say that you get a job. You are, a customer said, hey, can you work for like a few hours this week? Make sure that you, I know this is hard, but try to put all the work in like one day, because the Department of Labor, they knock off 25% of your weekly pay per day that you work. So you can work 1 hour in one day, and that's still, they're gonna reduce 25%. So if you work more than 3 days in 1 week, you will lose your whole pay for that week. So again, make sure that you try to work very few days of the week, that the pay that you get for that work is not more than $504 a week, because that's when you lose the benefit. Yeah, that.
Yeah, I think Andrea brought up an important point. You cannot make more than $504 a week. I see the question that someone asking can clarify, how many, what is the hour threshold? You really just can't make more than $504 in that week. Otherwise, you won't qualify for the state unemployment.
Yeah, there's no hour threshold, it's a day. It's like no more than 3 days. If you work 4 days, you will lose the whole thing, even if you work 1 hour in each day. So try to consolidate the days. And again, yeah, the 504. And the $600 bump from the federal government, you're only going to get that until July 31st, unless the federal government decides to extend that. So if you remain unemployed after July, you probably won't get that $600 bump at that point, which is why some people are deciding to apply for PUA rather than PPP, right? Because they could probably make more with that extra bump now than PPP.
Great, thank you. I'm going to repeat that just to make sure that everyone heard that. So you can't work more than 4 days a week and not more than $504 a week, correct? So it's those two things that you have to make that let you be eligible. I just wanted to make sure I repeated that again, correct?
No more than 3 days, because if
3 days, I'm sorry.
25%, it's like a quarter per day. So 4 would be the total thing.
So 3 days, so it's no more than 3 days and no more than the 504. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you, great. All right, I'm seeing another question. So I think that we have answered this. There's a lot of noise outside my apartment right now. Sorry, everyone. Should we not be recertifying if you haven't heard that you have been approved? So if someone's applied but they haven't been approved yet, yeah, should they be recertifying, or how does that?
The person in my office that does unemployment insurance claims, they told me that, I mean, at least that's what I understood, that you were supposed to certify every week from the moment that you applied, even if you haven't received anything yet, because that's how they figure out what you get per week. Remember, it's a weekly thing.
So it's from the moment that you apply, not the moment that you're approved, correct?
Right.
For people. Okay, just also making sure.
I think so, but I mean, it makes sense to do that, and it doesn't hurt to just recertify even if you haven't received anything. Yeah.
I think it's important to know that I think oftentimes you're not able to certify into the system unless you've been approved first. So that that's what to look out for.
Okay.
And then if you're not getting paid, you continue recertifying every week until you finally get paid.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. I'm seeing a follow-up question in the chat. We'll see if we can pull it to light. We are wrapping up in just a couple of minutes. This question is, if you accidentally put the wrong number from the wrong line, being tax line 31, on your unemployment for your income, is there a way to adjust that and fix it after the fact?
I would have to wait until you get on the phone with an operator to finish the final process of your application. I don't think you're able to go back in the system and change that.
Right. And they'll call you and they'll ask you for documentation for you to upload, I believe, right? I'm not sure, but they'll eventually have access to your documents to see what the real amounts are.
Then also, if you are denied because you felt you made a mistake in your application, you do have an appeal option. So just be mindful of that. There are a lot of folks who received less than what they thought they should be receiving or were completely denied. There is an appeal process that you can use.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I provided our hotline because we represent claimants in hearings for denial of benefits.
Great, thank you both. Looks like we're just at about time. So I just we're gonna wrap up. Really wanted to thank everyone who attended today. If you have additional questions or didn't get something answered or would rather speak one-on-one, not necessarily ask questions in a public forum, I really encourage you to sign up for Made NYC office hours. I encourage you to see what benefits the Freelancers Union can provide and sort of really dive into the organizations here today represented. So first of all, I would really like to give a thanks to the Made NYC team that I work with for helping to make this town hall happen. Mariah Chinchilla, our manager of membership and engagement. I'd like to give a shout out to Taylor Novick-Finder, who is our Made NYC fellow. I also really want to thank Andrew from Turnstile Tours. They, behind the scenes, have really helped us put this on and helped us with a lot of the technical logistics. So really want to thank Turnstile Tours for the support they provided for our town hall today. Also want to give another thank you to Con Ed for coming on as a sponsor for our town halls, office hours, or meetings to support Made NYC's COVID-19 work, helping our companies. And as of course, we are generously supported as well by the New York City Council. And just really want to thank again our speakers today, Rafael Espinal from the Freelancers Union, Loy Lesperance from the Freelancers Union, Mary Aloshoga from Pursuit Lending, and Andrea Tan from Legal Services Nyc. Made in NYC, we're going to be putting a recap together. We have been taking notes and are going to have access to the chat and all the links that were shared. So keep a lookout for a recap if you were had to drop off early or you came in late or whatever it might be, so that everything that we talked about today will be will be accessible to all of you. So just really thank you, and everyone have a restful weekend. Enjoy. Hopefully we can safely enjoy the warm weather. So thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Made NYC. Thank you. Thank you, Joanna.
You.